You were like, storm off kittens, as the dice are rolling down the floor, like at the end of Jumanji, like slow-mo. Yeah. Ian's like, no, don't. Like, committed to rolls an 11, head, boom.
Hi, everybody. This is Jason.
This is Pete.
And we are the Lost Legions podcast. And today, we're here to talk to you about our Greetings from the Warp event in Wellingborough. Pete.
Yeah, super sunny Wellingborough. Yeah, it was a good little trip, wasn't it, buddy? It's been a little while since we went on the road together like that.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've done. I think so. This is my first Heresy 2.0 event. It's been cool. It's been really, really, really interesting. And yeah, we're going to talk you through it. We're going to talk you through our feelings, our hopes, our dreams, if we won or if we lost.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we jump into that, guys, we are on 89 subscribers. Yeah, 89 subscribers at the moment of this recording. Yeah, we're getting near our goal of 100. That's all we want. So please, let's make this happen. Preferably by next week's video. So you got a week. Hit that subscribe button. And
like and subscribe, guys.
We
really appreciate it. Any help is awesome. And yeah, help spread the word. And we will bring you more Lost Legions content when we hit 100. Maybe we'll do a bonus show, Pete. That's it. We're our first bonus show.
Yeah.
That's it. Pete will be dancing around naked. Or
we'll just do a live stream of Hunt Showdown for an hour. That'll be good. I'm sure they'd love that. And here's our sideline show.
Anyway, let's jump into the event and we'll talk about it. We arrived on a Friday, so we all went up. I went up with my friend Johnny. We actually it was funny because it was a doubles event, but Pete and I were both rooming with each other's partner. So like I came up with Johnny, which is great to have him back, right? Like, so this is his first Heresy event. He hasn't played much Heresy since 2.0. So it's good to see him strut his stuff. And now he's caught the bug.
That's great. That's all he needed, wasn't it? That little taster, and now he's hooked.
Yeah. Why don't you tell us a little bit about the venue? Because that was kind of interesting too.
Cool. Yeah. So as you approach, it's in Huxlow Science College near Wellingborough. I don't think it's actually in Wellingborough, right? But near enough. And the entrance was quite funny, wasn't it? It was like a queue of what felt like 100 cars exiting the building, and we had to wait for them all to pass at once, which was all right.
It was like class let out. And we were like, we'd luckily been there before, but the first time I'd been there, I was like, what the hell is happening?
Yeah.
The exact same thing happened last time we arrived.
We had like 5 minutes. We had like 5 minutes spare from arrival time, and then like these cars are just coming out like, not going to make it. And then we park in the prison of cars, also known as a car park, and ditch the car, take all the stuff in, the usual approach, right? Like a big empty, not empty, but big, huge gymnasium, and all the gaming tables are set out, and walk in, and it's a bit quiet in there, and there's not that many people, not that many tables set out. And I'm like, oh, okay, it's a bit interesting. And then someone pokes their head round. I don't know. Do you remember who it was, Jane? He went, guys, the Heresy event's through here. And I'm like, oh.
I think it might have been. It was James or Ian. I don't remember. I saw both of them on the way in.
Heresy's through here. This is Adeptus Titanicus. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Which was great to see, but I didn't clock it at the beginning. Like these were like, the scale of the terrain left, and I was just like, oh, it's a bit quiet here.
I walked in and I was like, oh, this is going to be really nice and mellow. There's not a million people here. Yeah, we got dragged in the other room, but it was like wall-to-wall nerds.
Yeah.
So
nerd heaven.
It was actually, great. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was what we've come to kind of expect really from those guys now, right? I think it's the third one I've been to them from them. You've been to probably a similar number. Good tables and loads of space between the tables as well, which was key. It was
greetings.
Well laid out.
So this event wasn't anything crazy. So normally they'll do like a narrative event or something. This was book missions, which I think was fine because everybody's kind of getting used to the book missions now, right? So they rolled and did book missions. Actually, interestingly enough, I think for our first game, we just decided on something different and we played it anyway, which was another book mission. We were just like, yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
We were like, they said they're going to roll for book missions. We just rolled and we were like, okay, it's fine. We're just playing this one. So yeah, it was cool. So yeah, we set up. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yours and Ian's setup? What you guys were I'm sorry, me and Ian were together. You and Johnny's setup.
Ian was my bunk buddy. Johnny was my game buddy.
That was the other way around. Johnny was my bunk
and you
buddy.
were my arch nemesis, but more on that later, I guess. Our list. So I was running my Iron Warriors, and Johnny was running his Death Guard. He blew the dust off of them, which have sat in their case for like probably the best part of 5 years, I reckon. But yeah, it was good. So I was taking quite a high armored list. That was my plan. So you see here, we had these photos up for a little while here, but I'll show you what was going on. So this was... There's a good snap there of our forces. So mine and Johnny's forces are down the right-hand side there. So I had a couple Kratos. We had a couple Saber tanks as well. Some attack marines and a Rhino with the Warsmith. Johnny had 2 20-man blob squads of attack marines with apothecaries, which sat on objectives. They were great. A 5-man las cannon squad, a 7-man Volkite Caliber squad, 2 Scorpius. So all of the guns, not much up close. We had a Dreadnought as well, a Contemptor. But it was really good fun. I've not played Death Guard at all or played against them, and they're really, really cool on the tabletop. If anyone's curious about them, definitely give them a go. So they got me itching a little bit in more good ways than one, I guess. Was that
a Nurgle joke?
It kind of was, yeah. And I kind of went away from it because it was a terrible one. So it was good fun. I think personally, throwing up a V15 on the Kratos with the flare shield for our opponents was a little bit troublesome. So you can see in that picture there, this was our first game, and there's a Pythira Knight, which, for those that don't know, throws out 4 strength 10 AP2 laser blasts each turn. So incredibly scary, but it could only glance the front armor of those tanks. And the Sabres had the shock pulse feature, so they were shutting it down. So anything that was big and scary got dealt with quite quickly with my list, I think. But then we lacked the close quarters combat, which ultimately made us pay quite a few times throughout the event. That was good makeup. What about you and Ian? What do you guys run?
So Ian and I had a theme. We were doing the wolf and the lion, and the idea was before each game we would have an honor duel. So the lion and Russ would go to the very center, and we went to the center of this. We have a punch out, and basically whoever did the most wounds in one round won. So at the very beginning, I'm like, well, am I charging? And Ian's like, of course not. And I'm like, what? I'm eyeing on my bonuses on my charges. And he's like, fine, roll a d6. So we rolled a d6 and he won. So I didn't charge. This is before the last game where I asked Ian a question if Russ's sword was mastercrafted, because the last day I didn't have my book with me. So Ian looked it up on his little PDF, and I found out that Russ had countercharged 2 and his sword was mastercrafted. But I didn't know this to begin with. So Ian charged the first time, and the lion wins. I whiff it. He does more wounds to me, so he gets to lead the fight. So our lists were basically the same. We basically had I had 1 unit of Terminators and 2 units of Grey Slayers, and then Laser Rapier Destroyers. And he kind of had the same thing. He had 2 units of Terminators, 2 units of Tac Squad guys, and Laser Destroyers. Yeah. Or we had the Lion and Dreadnoughts. So if he took the Lion, I had Dreadnoughts. If I had Russ, he had Dreadnoughts. So it's very similar. And the lists kind of flipped back and forth. And we did it like that on purpose because we wanted them to be kind of the same no matter what. But the whole theme was who's going to win the fight. So on this game, he wins the fight, the very first one. And we square off against... I guess I'm just going to jump into the game. So we square off against Chris and his Alpha Legion, and I forget his...
This game here, right, on the picture, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's what made me jump in. His partner was super cool, who was playing Mechanicum, but Chris was using Alfarius. Okay. So, and this is something about this event. Particularly, I saw a lot of Primarchs, and it was cool because there was usually 1 per side. I think it was actually in the rules you can only take 1 Lord of War, but it felt great because it's 3,000 points a side. So Alfarius comes down turn 2, And turn 1, we ran this entire wave after all the Mechanicum. I turn around and basically throw all my wolves on the Alpha Legion.
Yeah.
By turn 3, I'm like tabled. The Alpha Legion have like 3 guys left, and there's barely any Mechanicum left as the Lion went through just detonating robots with his like magic sword. It was carnage. It was absolute carnage. And like, turn 4, I'm like just cheerleading for Ian because I'm literally tabled. But I'd killed so much stuff that like we pulled it out, I think, by attrition at the very end.
Wow.
So it was like one of those perfect games. No one knew who was going to win. We pulled it out by 1 point at the very end due to attrition. And it was like, or last man standing. I forget which one it was. Whatever, we had more units than they did.
Yeah.
And we pulled it out at the very end. And it was like such an excellent game. It was so fun. Possibly the funnest game of the even though we had some more amazing games, but like this was probably the funnest game of the entire event.
That was the first one. Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah. Kicked off with a really, really fun event. How about you? How was your first game? And I guess, how did you find the event? And what were your guys' lists? Like, what did you guys do with your guys' lists?
Yeah, so this was our first game. We obviously went through this just a moment ago, given the rundown of our lists. But this is Neil. Neil's a lovely man. You might know him from Attrition Events, and we played with Reese, but I don't have a photo of Reese as well. Very happy with his Porphyron here, as I'm sure you can see, dropping pie plates down. Anyhow, our first game was against Raven Guard. So Neil had his Raven Guard with a Porphyron, and Reese had his Imperial Fists with Sigismund and some Templar Brethren in a Spartan. I think we were a little bit unlucky, so I eyed up Neil's.
I like his action picture here.
Yeah, it's really good, right? It's kind of creeped me out a little bit. I'm going to change. Oh, that's even worse. Let's find something else. There's a good action shot. There it is. Cool. So when I saw Neil's Porphyron come through on the photos leading up to the event, I was like, I think I can kind of deal with that because the Sabres can shut it down. It can't really hurt the Kratos, and I can just put multiple shots on it with the Iron Warriors +1 strength on their big guns. And I did. I shut the Sabres down. So the Sabres shut the Porphyron down turn 1, but then the Sabres just got destroyed by the rest of the army turn 2, and then my ability to shut down that Porphyron like completely ceased. So actually, in this picture here, you can see the 2 Sabres are aiming at the Porphyron, so they were shutting it down. This is turn 1, and those 2 Kratos were trying to take out that Spartan in the bottom left there. Yeah. And they both whiffed their shots. They're like strength 10, AP1, armor bane shots. I didn't hit with twin link shots on any of the tanks. So, So turn 1, my huge anti-tank guns, which need to blow up and slow down those Templar Brethren, don't do a single thing. Like
totally whiff.
And then that meant that you then had the Spartan and the boys there, and now the Porphyron back or firing all 4 cylinders. So. It went a little bit bad. But yeah, it was horrible, that Porphyron once it started going. So game 1, we lost. They got their objective just about. You had to get the objective on each other's side is what we were playing. Like one objective in the opponent's deployment zone. Can't remember what it's called now. Is it called Onslaught? I think it's called Onslaught. To seize the Onslaught objective. But yeah, it was good. I had a 10-man tax squad led by my Warsmith and a Tech Marine. So they were like, you hate these guys. But they were like,
I love / hate them, but I'll get to this later. When I definitely had my chance to kill them.
They hopped out. They were just hopping out of their Rhino. A casual 40 ballistic skill 5 bolter shots, rerolling 1s to hit. Just delicious with all the Iron Warriors rules working all together, and all of those shots are pinning as well. So they were great. And then if they got shot back out or whatever, just return them into their Rhino and go and find another target. It was actually really good. So yeah, that was our game 1. I think Johnny fell in love with Scorpius on this. Like really, you need to take Scorpius. So he took a unit too, and they were just raining hell all game.
They're so good because they have these large blasts that are rending. Is it rending or breaching?
Rending, yeah.
Rending or breaching 4 up, and they are pinning. And so they don't get the little rocket barrages anymore. But I never liked that, right? Like this feels so much better.
They're really, really good.
Yeah, I think if they don't move, instead of getting multiple barrages, now they get the rending.
Rending and pinning if they don't move, yeah. Otherwise, it's just AP4. Yeah.
Which is great. Like, I think it's really good. He had 2 of them, and he was in love with them, right? Like, he really liked them.
Yeah.
They did work.
Yeah. And in another game, they were... Because it's rending and it's barrage, right? It's hitting the side armor of vehicles. So you go strength 8, 4 plus rending goes to strength 12, plus the D3. So you're really just putting wounds on vehicles whole points off of vehicles quite quickly as well. So, yeah.
Can I set up game 2?
If you must. We don't have any photos of game 2s, guys. I'm glad we don't, because tell you what, the Lost Legions podcast nearly came to an end at one point. Do you
want to just show pictures of me crying like a little baby? Like,
yeah, they're all blurred out.
So game 2, like Pete, so you grudge people, right? So
yeah.
Pete and Johnny came up and they were like, "Hey, do you guys want to play us?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, it'll be great." So they had a mostly shooting list, and Ian and I had this mostly close combat list. So we're like, "Okay, cool." So the greetings from the Warped guys roll, and they're like, I forget what the mission was, right? But like, the mission didn't matter. But they're like, boom, lengthwise deployment.
Yeah, hammer and anvil, right?
Hammer and anvil. Yeah, we're all no. So they start all the way on the back of the board, and we start all the way forward with 24 inches. And there's these trench lines, the Martyrs trench lines. I forget what they're called exactly. There's a GW terrain.
I think they were the Wall of Martyrs, weren't they?
That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I start running forward with Russ, and all of the mooks he's with are behind the Wall of Martyrs.
You're doing yourself a disjustice here. So you get the unfavored deployment type.
Yes.
Like, do you guys want? So we were like, do you want night fighting? You and Ian were like, yeah, we want night fighting. I was like, all right. I mean, we'll roll for it. Roll a 1. Night fighting is off. Me and Johnny are like, just glance at each other like, yes, give them a volley. And then you fail to seize the initiative as well, right? Yeah. So all these things. So it's like, ugh. So yeah, sorry.
We're barreling down as fast as we can down, and Space Wolves are so fast. Like everybody running 11 inches is insanely fast. Like your whole army's jump troopers without jump troop. Like it's just crazy.
Yeah.
And then they can charge. So it's like they're barreling down the field. I will never do this again, though. All of the mooks. So I don't run them with the Terminators. I run the Terminators with the rune caller. Why do I always forget his name? I always want to call him a Stormseer, but he's not a Stormseer. The caster of runes. And still wrong. Whatever, it's fine. My librarian. And he has the Stormseer power, which allows him to call down a storm and give him a 3-up shrouded. I couldn't remember the name of that the whole time too, so I kept saying, "I cast Storm of Kittens!" Yeah. And everybody was just like, "What?" And I'm like, "Storm of Kittens!" And so I called it Storm of Kittens all weekend. So I ran him to cast Storm of Kittens on the Terminators, and I was like, "Oh, Russ will be fine. Russ is a big boy. He's tough. He's Russ." I put him with these mooks. They'll soak up some hits. So they're all behind the Wall of Martyrs, right? And I think 1 or 2 was kind of on top. And Johnny's like, Volkite.
Yeah, 7 Volkite culverins.
Yeah, so he's like, take 36 wounds. And I'm like, so the mooks soak up like 4 before there's no more mooks that can be seen. And so I'm like, no problem. 1, 2, 1, dead. Like, I'm just like, no! I was like, fuck, this game is over. We're dead.
It was Russ was on 1 wound, wasn't he? And then Johnny was like, and now deflagrate. And I was like, oh god.
Yeah. And then he just dies. And I'm like, fuck this. And Pete's bolter squad is debarked right in front of me, right? Like he would have mopped me up anyway. But like, I was like, oh my god, he didn't even get to do anything. So like, Johnny came over and he fucking gave me a hug. He's like, I'm sorry I killed your space wolf guy.
Yeah, I'm sorry I killed your dolly. I think. I'm sorry I killed your man dolly.
I straight went on tilt. I was just like, ah!
Yeah, I never seen you like that.
You guys totally pulled me back. I was totally on tilt. I was like, no.
What was the weird scenario with this is usually we like a couple beers or a fair few beers along with a game, right? Yeah. So you and more so Ian were hungover a bit, right? Like Ian was quite hungover. You were
totally hungover.
I was like, do you want a beer? Because we had the TGI Fridays Friday night and just lots of beers.
Yeah.
Beer and whiskey at like 2 p.m. or whatever, right, Jay? Anyway, yeah, what was I saying? And so you're a bit hungover, so you have another beer. Ian's really hungover, and Johnny's driving. So I've never seen Johnny sober playing a game of Warhammer in my life. It was a really weird thing. But I'm like 6 beers in or whatever throughout the day, and like, yeah, this is all right. I'm like, Jesus, this is really intense game 2 Saturday game. Christ, everyone's really serious with these guys. But that was to be fair, Ian was kind of right. It did close. It got closer. Like we still won, and it was still gonna be, I think, a convincing enough victory. But the minute you got one unit into our lines, it did snowball quite quickly.
Yeah, I like ripped down that Terminator squad reached Johnny's. So I ran through his dreadnought and ripped into his 20-man blob squad, and just the Terminators just ripped it down.
Yeah.
And then like Ian was about to do the same with another one, but he just kind of flubbed his charge, and Johnny actually ended up wiping him. And that's at the point where we had no chance. Like I think we had this outside chance, but Ian was right. We turned it around kind of halfway through the game, and our close combat units got into your lines, and we managed to wipe out like kind of Johnny's Volkites and the last cannons that were shooting at us.
Yeah.
I didn't realize this is where I realized how tough Kratos were. The first one I didn't realize how tough it was because the Rune Priest just walked up and he had an axe. And this is actually a good thing if anyone wants to comment about this. I'm trying to figure out how this works, because force now doubles the strength of your weapon. So the way we played it was strength 5, and then we doubled it when force activated it. But I'm not sure if it's not it says double the strength of the weapon though, and the weapon is strength 5.
But the weapon's +1 strength, isn't it? That's the strength of the weapon. So it's an awkward one, isn't it? Are you arguing whether it's strength 9 or strength 10? Is that what you're trying to say?
Yes. Yeah. Because if you have like a power fist, you double first and then add. So I'm just curious how this works, because it says double the strength of your weapon. So we played it as strength 10. The first Kratos I walked up to and just absolutely devastated with the librarian, and then I tried to punch the other one with those strength 8 power fists, and they're like pink,
just glancing.
Like, what is the armor on this thing? It's armor 14 all around, and I'm like, oh my god. So they're really tough. And the second one I couldn't kill. The librarian actually detonated himself. So psychic powers. Let me put it aside here and say I think psychic powers are really good. The librarian took quite a few hits from Perils of the Warp, and in the end, when I separated off from the squad, I couldn't dump the wounds on the squad anymore because I went after that Kratos, and I think the Terminators went after a scoring unit or something. I greedily rolled, right? Well, I had to do it because otherwise I couldn't kill it. And he just detonated himself. He just
it was quite funny. You were like, "Storm off, kittens!" as the dice are rolling down the floor, like at the end of Jumanji, like slow mo. Ian's like, "No, don't!" Like, committed to rolls an 11, head, boom.
Like it was cool though. But I just say I really like psychic powers. It's kind of a takeaway from this that I wasn't expecting. I don't think we're not mimicking each other.
I just look at this. This is a bit odd, isn't it?
I was like, are you mimicking me? Maybe Pete and I are friends. You can tell we both do the same thing. So yeah, that was game 2, and it was fun. And again, like I think I was impressed by the psychic powers. I went on tilt. the Primarchs are really brutal in hand-to-hand combat, but they're also like, I think with a lot of the precision shots now and the fact that people aren't running as many vehicles, they're a lot easier to pick out and hammer down. And these are the kind of things I noticed. You want to just kind of breeze through your game three?
I think we talk a little bit about the evening, a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I think it'd be fun. So that was game 2, and we're walking out to Johnny's car. And if you're of a slight sensitive nature, it's probably best to maybe skip the next minute or two. And obviously it was a bit of an intense game. And Johnny, I think, as we get to the car to break the silence, Johnny goes, "Oh, been holding this in for a while. Let's go a rather loud fart." And Jason goes, "Man, I gotta do myself one of those." And the earth-shattering bassy ass.
It was my wet leopard growl.
It was the wet leopard growl. Me, Johnny, and Ian literally were like hit by seismic activity, knocked back 5 meters. Like literally, like God, like escapes Jason.
I think
Johnny started gagging to the sound. That's how horrible this sound. We never smelled anything actually. It was the sound.
It's amazing.
Eye-watering. It was
Space Wolf player, man. It's the wet leopard growl.
So anyway, it was the funniest part of the whole weekend, I think. So that's why I'm mentioning it. But then we went back, chilled out for an hour, didn't we? Had a drink at the Dog and Duck, and then went on to that curry house in Wellingborough, which shout out to Will for finding that. That was very good. Very reasonable food, right?
It was the best COVID den I've ever been to.
Yeah, a fair few COVID or rumoured COVID cases may be happening. Mr. Lee Jagger joined us as well briefly.
Yep.
That was good. Cool. Good to catch up with him. And we went back. That was pretty much it, right? Slept. Hangover day 2.
Yeah,
McDonald's breakfast.
I kind of felt kind of hungover day 2. And then when we got back, Johnny and I were late. So we arrived and Ian turns to me, because remember we had done a little honor duel every time beforehand. He's all, "You have forfeited the honor. I have taken command." And I'm like, "Oh, that's fine.
You have no honor."
And we played against Blood Angels and Thousand Sons, and we were like, it's the Blood Ravens. So that was really fun, and that's when I really started to understand the power of the Space Wolf special reaction. So the Space Wolf special reaction, for anyone who doesn't know, is if someone moves within your trigger zone, which is 12 inches, you could then move your initiative and charge them. So I ran up in the middle of the board right next to these Dawnbreakers, and I'm like, "What are you going to do, bro?" And
if they end their movement, right? Just to be clear. Yeah.
So the guys I ran up to were pinned, but the other unit of Dawnbreakers was about, I don't know, I forget exactly how far away they were, but they couldn't move within distance, like easy charge. They couldn't move within distance, and then I would charge them, basically. So, because they're about 12 inches away. So if they moved into charge range, I would have been able to charge them.
Yeah.
And so they moved away from me. And then next turn, I charged this pinned unit of Dawnbreakers. It was so brutal. But that was just kind of learning how to use that and like how good some of these reactions are. And I think that was my big takeaway from this game. And that was a huge punch up. And in the end, Ian and I ended up winning, but just by just a touch again.
Yeah.
So it was and it was one of those ones at the end where we had no idea if we were going to win or not. It came down to the last rolls. And it was we didn't know. I think at the very end, because it was the one where you score 7 points if you're in their zone and 3 if you score yours. So we managed to take out the units that were in our zone. They still had one scoring one. I think we tied on scoring units. And then again, it came down to secondaries. And it was we both had Warlord. And then it was attrition or something, or last man standing. I forget what it was. It's one of those two. And again, it was we won by 1 point. So it was an amazing fight, really good. And the guys were super cool. We had a really, really good event.
Decent
game. How was yours?
Yeah, so game 3 was, I think I'll speak for Johnny as well, it was probably our favourite game of the whole weekend. We played against Tom and Giles from the Merchants Princelings podcast. Shout out to those boys. You guys probably listen to them who listen to us or watch us. They were running Mechanicum and Iron Hands. Tom's running an Iron Hands, I forget what the right war's called now, but the tank company type one. And Giles, I couldn't even begin to explain to you what all of the different names of the Mechanicum guys were, so I'm not going to bother trying. There were some Toughness 5 guys. There was a Toughness 5 Warlord that was super cool. Lots of Haywire guns. Some basic... what little jetpack dudes called? They're called Phalanx.
Thanatars?
No.
Phalanx.
The little Phalanx warriors. Yeah, they were like Leadership 7 little guys. Trying to think what else he had. I think that was pretty much it. Can't forget it. I'm struggling to remember now. And we had to get into their deployment zone. They had to get into ours.
Same mission.
Worth more victory points to get into each other's deployment zones, right? And turns 1 and 2, me and Johnny are like, shit, these Mechanicum are really soaking up everything we're throwing at them and dealing and like just deleting attack marines and heavy support marines. And I've lost both sabers turn 1 and it's all going a bit nasty. My 2 Kratos team up and take on Tom's Kratos and just blow it to smithereens because I had the... it's really interesting actually. A lot of people don't think the main battle cannon is worth it, but the range 24 armor bane, he had the multi-melter one, so he had to get into range 18 armor bane.
Yeah, we were talking about this, and I actually...
It's interesting.
I actually rate the flashburn one like you have.
That's it, yeah. The flashburn shells, yeah. Yeah, so because the melt is strength 8, the front armor of the falchion with the falchion of the what are they called? Kratos with the flare shield is what I'm trying to say. Is 15, so he couldn't hurt me unless he got within melter range, right? So that was cool. So they wrecked that. And then we started pouring the Kratos guns, the strength 10 flashburn shells on Giles's like war boss unit where they're all toughness 5. So we're starting to now double out these Mechanicum guys.
Popping them, yeah.
And there was one moment where, because Giles's warlord is modelled bigger because it's a Mechanicum warlord, I could see like his shoulders and above this piece of terrain, all his bodyguard are below. So
no, you did the rust thing to him.
I played the rules of line of sight. So this Kratos with his big flashburn that just like turns around like boom. Flashburn.
I'll never do that again.
Flashburn through the skull of this Mechanicum warlord, detonates in his skull, doubled him out. It was a glorious shot. My warlord charged Tom's Sikaran warlord, tank commander. And just running at it with a graviton crusher hammer, like just charging at it. Just got absolutely decimated with Volkite and autocannon fire. It was really cool. And we won just like we held our deployment zone and all other zones were contested. So it was really close, but it was turn 1 and 2. All 4 of us, no one was really caring about the game, like not playing it overly seriously, and each game turn the seriousness level just kept growing, but we all went through it together. It was a really good fun journey.
Sounds like the opposite of the next game where the serious level as we went on.
So game 4 we played each other again, right? But we switched.
But this time, we decided to swap. So basically Ian goes with Pete and I go with Johnny because we're like, let's have Russ and the Lion fucking punch it up. We'll see who the big dog is.
Yeah.
Hint in that statement.
Jesus Christ. Do you want to talk us through that combat? Because it was something to behold.
So Johnny sets up behind me. We roll. We get the fortress area, right? Johnny sets up behind me. Don't think he ever moves the entire way.
He didn't. Not once.
The wolves we're in the corner deployment, and like the wolves just run. Turn 1, boom, they're right in the lion's face. And like I am less than 8 inches from the lion. And Ian's just sitting there. Everybody backs up because nobody wants to get charged but because Ian knew exactly what I was doing.
Yeah.
I was basically baiting people to move so I could then charge them.
Yeah.
So everybody beep, 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 like backs up. Pete's like, I blew up Pete's rhino because Pete was like, "Why are you picking on my bolter guys?" I'm like, "Johnny, shoot them. Make sure they die." Pete's like, "Why?"
Fuck those guys in particular. Like, they're my guys.
My innocent little bolter guys. I'm like, "Yeah, fuck them." He's like, "Fuck, he knows." Like, I saw you. Like, God damn it, he knows how good they are. And so yeah. So, but they run away. Their rhino gets blown up. They run out of the 12-inch bubble, and I'm just sitting there. And then Ian's like, "Oh," on their turn. We shoot, some things die, whatever. Shit happens. The one Space Wolf squad that was pinned every turn until the last turn was pinned for the first time. And Ian's like, "Wait, you're within 8 inches. The lion has a special ability. If he can charge 8 inches and not roll." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he's like, "I'm all bring it." And I'm feeling cocky. I'm sounding cocky, but I'm not feeling cocky because I know how good the lion.
Well, you're seeking redemption as well, aren't you? Right?
Yeah, exactly. So I'm like, "Fuck it, let's do this." So he charges me, and I'm like, actually, I just wanted the punch up. So even if he got the charge, I was like, fine. So this is when I roll, and all of my hits hit but one, and I'm like, "Oh well, Russ's sword used to be mastercrafted." I'd forgotten my book because I was hungover. It was in the car. And I was like, "Ian," and I kind of talked about this earlier. And I was like, "Ian, could you look up and see if Russ's sword is mastercrafted?" And that's when he goes, "He's mastercrafted. And you have countercharge too." So I'm like, "Oh, let me roll 2 more dice." So I roll 2 more dice.
Yeah.
2 more hits. And then we're like, "Okay." He's like, "I got 5 hits." I'm like, we roll, boom. He's like, 5 wounds. I'm like, "Okay, cool." I roll 2 saves. I take 3 wounds. I'm like, "Let me roll." Boom. 9 wounds. Oh, I'm brutal too. 18 wounds.
18 wounds.
The lion goes.
And that's a Primarch charging.
And he charged me.
It's disgusting.
And then Russ just detonates him. Like, absolutely detonate. I mean, to be fair, it was an amazing to hit roll. Everything, I was hitting him on 4s, right? So everything was above a 4.
Yeah.
So, and Ian actually had an amazing save roll. He failed everything but 7 wounds. But
he nearly made it.
Yeah, he nearly succeeded. So I think what would have happened before is, on a normal average roll, I would have really wounded him, and I would have taken probably 2 wounds because I rolled bad. So 2 or 3.
Yeah. Turn 2 of combat, you kill the lion.
Yes,
on average, right?
I think that's what would have happened. But what ended up happening was I had an amazing to hit roll, and he just went.
Yeah.
And explode and rolled like 1-1.
Rush just clicks Thanos' glove.
Yeah,
and the lion just disintegrates.
And after that, everyone was just like, "Okay." And then they were like, "Well, fuck Russ in particular. He's only got 2 wounds left." Because I think he took 1 into the round in the beginning. Because I tried to soak a wound on him and rolled a 1. And I failed my "It's no will not die" roll. And then they shoot everything in their army at him. Both Kratoses. Nothing. No wounds. I think I rolled every save.
I couldn't hit Toffee with those that game.
No, and then but nobody was within 12 inches because everybody had ran from him. So the next turn I run, and then the next turn they just gunned him down and he died. But at that point, we had killed so much of your guys' army. It wasn't... Johnny at this point has lost a dreadnought. Pete's lost like half his army. Ian's like got almost nothing left.
Nearly, right? Yeah.
Yeah, I have 2 squads left. I have the pin squad that like fucking Pete keeps pinning every turn, and my other squad is running around. But like all the Terminators and Russ are dead. But it was just we took such a huge chunk out of their army. It was just at that point, like it was ridiculous. And Johnny had everything. And Johnny's just shooting the hell out of everything. So, but at the end, it was like 2 or 3 Dark Angels, a Kratos, and Johnny's entire army.
It was super funny.
Yeah, it was a funny game. But like watching Russ detonate the lion was just hilarious. We were like, all right, well, I guess that question's answered. So yeah.
That was at that point, like the last like 2 or 3 turns of that game, I've just got 2 Kratos and I'm just moving them, rolling some dice, shooting this impenetrable fortress of Death Guard, like just like, oh, we're definitely done here. I think it's like, and it was like last game, tired, got a 2.5 hour drive on the way back. Like we conceded, brother. Like, yeah, it's done. So that was it, pretty much.
Yeah, it was really
we didn't hang around for awards and stuff, so our game finished like an hour and a quarter, hour and a half earlier than the allotted finish time. So bearing in mind how tired we were and how far our journeys back were, we were like, yeah, time to leave. Let's just go. So
yes,
it was good. We went and had a coffee, didn't we? We talked a bit about Caliban lists and all sorts of things briefly at Starbucks for 20 minutes and then hit the road.
Yeah. So what were your takeaways from 2.0 though? This is our first event, and how did you feel about it? How were the overall reactions from everyone?
Yeah. I don't think anything's too strong. I think the Legion specific ones, if anything, are the ones that might need a bit of interest around them. Some are considerably better than others, and it doesn't feel great because at least the shooting reactions you can. Everyone's got the same shooting reactions. You can just choose which units they're going on, right? Like that's kind of fine. But like the Space Wolf's reaction, if you can move and run 11 inches with a Primarch or with whatever you want into the center, and then he
can't run. Just for anyone's knowledge, Russ cannot run in charge. He is not infantry. He does run and get +1 weapon skill though.
So you usually you're 24. You're setting up 24 away from each other. So if you're, moving and running 11, and then the opponent's next turn, you've got a 12-inch deny bubble because you will just potentially charge them. That's quite a big area of the board. That's it's fine, it's fun, and it's fluff, it's thematic, but it also is a huge area. Yeah, I think the area might be too big. I think maybe 6 or 8 inches would be fine.
When I used it to charge Ian's squad on your guys' turn, he was like, "Oh, great! Now none of the rest of them can do it." Russ was still up at that point.
Yeah,
I personally think.
Excuse me.
So I've only played really I've played the Alpha Legion and the Space Wolves, and I feel like both of their special things are very consequential. I wish that everybody's Special Legion reaction was that consequential. I mean, because the Alpha Legion have the smoke bomb where they can just reposition behind something. A lot of people have been using it aggressively and actually moving forward with it. And yeah, it's very strong. The Alpha Legion one's very strong. The Space Wolf one's very strong. The Dark Angels one, for instance, is not very strong. What's the Iron Warriors one, Pete?
Shoot twice. Shoot twice as a reaction.
That's actually pretty strong too, especially depending on who you use it on, right? Like you shoot that las cannon squad, no one's gonna want to shoot that las cannon squad.
Yeah. The Blood Angels one's a little bit. I mean, it's like if you're shot at, you can charge once per game.
Yeah, they get 5-up shrouding and they can charge. So I would say it's decent, but it's less consequential than like the Space Wolf one.
I think the Salamanders one is particularly good because it lasts like a game turn or something. It's like everyone causes. I can't remember. Someone will know, but I think it's either you gain Fearless or you cause Fear 2 or something like that, like Army Wide or something. It's bloody strong.
Okay.
But anyway, yeah, it's really something like that. But yeah, anyhow, my takeaway was just that. Really, I think nothing felt particularly OP. But the game itself, in general, and it's kind of a little bit to the experience I had with Russ. And this isn't me being funny here or anything, but our first game we played against each other, and also the same experience with the Pythiron. Is those high-cost, super tough models, they have to die. Because if you let them do their thing, it's game over for you, right? But on the same side of it is if you get lucky and you do kill that model turn 1 or 2 or whatever, your opponent is then at such a disadvantage because they've just lost 500, 600 points or whatever it is, turn 1, turn 2, in a cost, in their sink, if that makes sense. So
I think also, right,
you know what I'm trying to say?
People don't know who. Yes, I do. People don't know who trumps what. Like, so we in our third game, we spent against the Blood Angels and Thousand Suns. Sanguinius was there, and he spent the whole time running away from the lion until the very last turn. And I think that if he had charged the lion, he would have either mauled the lion or killed him.
Right.
Because he has so many bonuses on the charge.
Okay.
But he spent so long running away from him that it just took forever. And then it was like, I think if he just ran in there with all of his dudes at the very beginning. But I think that, like, again, like in our game, we didn't know how much better. I mean, I guess we kind of did, but we didn't know how much better. Because the lion is really good, guys. Like, really good. Second to top tier Primarch. The two standout Primarchs, though, and this is for one rule, are Ferrus Manus and Russ. Because Ferrus Manus is brutal 3 and Russ is brutal 2.
Yeah.
And that's just so many extra saves that they just detonate high toughness, high like wound models, right?
Yeah.
They just put the hurt down on stuff. And that's just, and there's not very many other Primarchs that have those weapons. And I think that that's what makes them kind of like the top tier, in my opinion. The two top killers, I think I would go out on a limb and say Ferrus Manus and Russ. And then you kind of get the Lion, Fulgrim, and like that kind of level of people who are just really, really good.
Yeah.
But they just don't have those weapons that are, the brutal weapons are just brutal. Forgive me. Overall, though, any other takeaways? How excited for you for events on wrapping up?
Yeah, I'm really good. Next one is Rob's event in November, tail end of November. So yeah, excited for that one. It's gonna be good. Just want to crack on with some other little projects now. I got my event to host in December. It's a little shout out there, so that'll be fun to have you guys down.
Cool. And we'll do some more chats on narrative events and like what you guys are doing, because I think what Pete and Ben are doing is really cool, unique, and some of the funnest narrative events I've been to. So, and we'll do a couple more shows on that and kind of like what they're doing later on, because I think it's really unique and cool, and also like they add a lot of elements that aren't in other tournaments. So events like that. But
dirty. Cool.
But anyway,
that wraps it up, right? Yeah.
Leave a comment, let us know what you think, and we will see you in the next one.
Cheers. Bye, guys.